Peace and blessings to you all. Welcome to DETV Faith, and we are here to share with you God's divine truth for your life. I pray that you will enjoy tonight and enjoy the word that it will be coming into your life and into your heart and into your homes and wherever you may be. We pray that God has given you not only a destiny but a determination to move forward in 2025. I'm excited about this moment, excited about this time. For many of our church and Christian believers, we are in a time of consecration, time of fasting, time of praying, time of refocusing, redefining, and trying to find our center, trying to find the gravity, the location, work through equilibriums and find a balance so that we can move in faith to a place that God not only is pleased with our sacrifice, but pleased also with our work ethic. So tonight, I want to draw you close, give you some points to ponder and some principles to live by so that we can be more equipped and find ourselves not working and walking in quantity as much as quality. So I want to talk to you tonight about the value of the secret place. The value of the secret place. God has a secret hiding place, and He invites all of us to join Him there. If I don't spend time in His presence, if I don't enter into the secret place, I can still be a Christian without feeling like I'm accountable to my Creator. But the Master calls. He draws us close to intimacy with Him. Waller has a book out called Dare to Dance with God. He talks about the whole idea that God desires to dance with each one of us, to whirl and twirl us on the floor of His existence. But the catch is that He has to lead. He has to lead the dance. It's what my grandmother would sing times past and gone, where He leads me, I will follow. He's longing to have us to pant after Him as the deer, says the psalmist, panteth after the water brook. He desires from you and I a closer and daily walk with Him. And as we search the Holy Writ, the Bible translates the term secret place as shelter, covering, or dwelling, rather than secret place. So the biblical transliteration of the Old Testament word of secret place is my covering, my shelter, my dwelling. So the Old Testament then terms this secret place from the Hebrew root word sereth, which seems to suggest to hide or to conceal. So then the psalmist then unearths this word and digs deeper in Psalm 139 and stanza 15. Psalm 139 and stanza 15, he says, my frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was made in the hiding place, when I was made in the concealed place. Look at the metaphor that he shares with us. He speaks of the hidden world of the castle of a mother's womb, that a child develops in the concealed place, in the liquidity of embryonic fluids, in the hiding place. The psalmist has this quick and dramatic shift after addressing the congregation. David then speaks directly to God in Psalm 32 and stanza 7. He says, "You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance." You're my hiding place. You're my concealed place. I know that in you, you will protect me. You will guard me. You will shield me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance. And although a secret place can refer to a physical location, it most often connotes a state of a soul in its relationship with God. Come close, if you will. Come close. Scoot your chair up just a little closer. Psalm 27, stanza 5 in the New American Version says, "For in the day of trouble, he will conceal me or hide me in his tabernacle. In the secret place of his tent," his tabernacle, "he will hide me. He will lift me up on a rock." The psalmist is not referring to an actual tabernacle or a tent in which he will hide from physical enemies. He is speaking of the state of peace that you and I have with God, that gives him, God, gives to you and I amidst trials and attacks. So what God is trying to get you and I to understand, that if he's going to conceal us, if he's going to hide us in the secret place, in the shelter, he wants you and I to know of a certainty that trials and tribulations will come, but he will put you in a state and a place where your trouble won't trouble you. You'll be able to handle the situation, handle the circumstance. Oh, bad times will come, you know. Good times don't always last, but, you know, good people also experience bad times, but God gives us a sense of toughness. It's kind of three-dimensional. You got to have a teachable head, a tender heart, and a tough hide. So you have to make sure that you're always open to learning, because as you learn, you continue to grow. Then you have to have a tender heart. You have to have levels of sensitivity. You have to be willing to feel at times what others are feeling. You have to share yourself, not with just sympathy, but with empathy. And then you have to have a tough hide. You got to take a licking and keep on ticking. It comes with the territory. It's part of your leadership development. You're constantly going through things in life so that you can get to the place God has for you. The idea of a secret place originates with God, because he is spirit and his glory is beyond our ability to perceive. So we must meet with him in the secret place of the heart to commune with him. So when Moses, as you recall in Exodus, wanted to see the glory of God, the word says that the Lord explained to him that no man can see me and live. So in Exodus 33 and 20, Exodus chapter 33, verse 20, God allows Moses to see his glory only from the secret place. What a wonderful scripture. God said, "When my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I pass by." God shares with Moses his glory, but he shares with him the hinder part. In other words, Isaiah talks about, "And his train filled the temple, and the angels, the seraphims, cried, 'Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty.'" And the word said, "And the doorposts moved." Now, when he says the train filled the temple, you really understand that a train is connected to a bride who walks down the aisle, and she's at the altar, but her train is still coming. And you ain't gonna talk to me. I said, she's down the aisle, and her train is still coming. In other words, in Isaiah, God had left the building, but his train was still being drugged through the place, and his presence was still being felt. Here God gives us a glimpse into what we must do to experience the presence of God. It can only be enjoyed when we enter into his secret place. Psalm 91:1 and Psalm 91, one of my favorite scriptures, gives us the best illustration of the value of the secret place. And you must hold the secret place dear. You must see its worth. You must see its value. Psalm 91, stanza 1 said, and he that dwells, this does not speak to gender specific, he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Why don't you think of the secret place that we enjoy through the lenses of your childhood? Imagine being 10 years old again and finding a secret place under the stairs or in the shed kitchen or behind the big old oak tree where you could hide. You slipped inside, and in that secret place where you were hiding, it felt magical. You felt safe. You felt protected from the whole world. You imagined that you could live there all the time, and no one could find you because you were in your hiding place. You were in your concealed place. And often you might invite, as I would, my best friend to share it with me, because secret hiding places are better shared with someone you love and trust. That's the picture. That's what the psalmist, he takes a broad brush and he strokes the canvas of the Old Testament canon. And he said God has a secret hiding place, and he invites us to join him there. Notice that he does not invite us to visit. The promise is to those who dwell there. To dwell means to live there. It becomes your address. It's your residential abode. It's your hangout spot. God invites us to pack up and move to his secret place and join him there. To do so, we must walk away from the clamor and the enticements of the world. We must be willing to quit our hearts, quiet our hearts before him, and allow him to investigate those inner recesses and to reveal our innermost secrets. Secret places imply honesty and the trust factor. We cannot join God in his secret place unless we are willing to be transparent and honest with him. So Jesus said in Matthew 6:6, but when you pray, go into your room, the secret place, close the door, the concealed place, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Jesus was not necessarily indicating a physical location, because we can pray anywhere at any time. Prayer has nothing to do with knee bowing and ginger flexing. But to really connect with God, we must enter into the secret place in our own spirit and meet God there. A quiet location will help, and we should seek solitude when we want to spend uninterrupted time with God. It is also helpful to have a designated place where you go to spend time with God. Jesus did this while on earth. Although he often prayed in public, he also slipped away from the crowds and even his closest friends to spend time alone with his Father in solitude. But the secret place in Psalm 91 describes not a physical location, it's a state of spiritual rest that prevails. Regardless of outward circumstances, there is great benefit from dwelling in the secret place of the Most High God. When we choose to leave behind the world's delights in favor of a lifestyle of continual spiritual contemplation, God draws near in new ways. So James 4:8 says, "Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded." We begin to see our sin the way he does. Time spent in the presence of God reveals our true thoughts and selfishness, our motives that might otherwise escape unnoticed. But from the secret place, the fruit of the Spirit takes root and begins to grow in our lives. We start to see our lives from an eternal perspective, and the earthly frustration lose their significance. We do not have to neglect our responsibility or relationship to dwell in his secret place. The key to moving there is a total surrender to the Holy Spirit and the will of God for your life and mine. This decision dominates our action and changes our outlook. As we obey God, God meets us in the secret place. John 14:24, and I'm closing. "Whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me. The one who loves me will be loved by the Father, and I too will love them and show myself to them." He teaches us and encourages us to remain, to stay, to be in continual, make the right choice of surrendering fully to him, and the results will become that you and I will become strong. If our lives are to bear lasting fruit, the power to bear that fruit comes from time spent with him in the secret place, in the concealed place, the place where he wants to use us. Listen to this last scripture, Psalm 92, 12 through 14. "They will grow like the cedar of Lebanon, planted in the house of the Lord. They will flourish in the coast of our God. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, proclaiming, 'The Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no wickedness in him.'" I invite you tonight to the secret place where you can find rest and peace with God. I want to pray for you. Kind Father, thank you for the privilege of hearing your word, because you said, "He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church." I pray now that you will give us a hunger and thirst for your righteousness. Give us now the desires to make our way to the secret place, that we may find strength, health, and wellness in you. Let us abide in your will, walk by your word, that we will work out our soul salvation with fear and trembling. In Jesus' name, amen. Listen, thank you for sharing with us tonight. DETV Faith, that's where we are. And I appreciate you lending your ear to my tongue. Be blessed tonight.
Welcome to a special edition of Every Woman on DETV. I'm Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, and I am thrilled to be back for another important discussion. Our conversation today is about voting rights and democracy. And today in Delaware, we are incredibly fortunate to have some special guests with us here for the program. First, my friend and colleague in the Senate, Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. And Senator, I have to say I'm so proud because she is here. She is the author of the Freedom to Vote Act. She has shepherded through the Electoral Count Act as chair of the Rules Committee, which has jurisdiction over elections. And a lot of people don't know that. Amy, it's so wonderful to have you here.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. It's so great to be in Delaware and just to be able to work with you. You also have been such a champion of voting rights in Congress, and I just believe that everything hinges on whether or not people have a right to vote so that they get to have their own, make their own decisions about their own destinies.
Thank you, Senator. And we also have another friend who I'm sure is familiar to all of you here in Delaware, our Attorney General, Kathy Jennings, who I've had the opportunity and the honor of working on some very important things to our state. She is courageous, she is tireless, and she is an advocate for our families and for our children. And so we're glad to have you here as well. General Jennings, I'll call you in this moment.
Nice alliteration.
Yes, it is. It is. And while I know both of you, I want Delaware to know a little bit more about you, Amy, and why this issue of voting rights is so important, why democracy is so important.
So I did not come from a political family. My dad was a journalist, covered the Vikings, whole nother story.
Okay.
And my mom was a teacher, but I got really interested in politics. I actually had my own experience when our daughter was born. She couldn't swallow, and they kicked me out of the hospital after 24 hours. And as a mom, I went to the legislature and got a bill passed guaranteeing new moms and their babies a 48-hour hospital stay. Wow. So after that, I was hooked on democracy and this idea that you could actually get something done no matter where you came from. So that's what led me to get really involved in this idea that you just can't have wealthy people run for office, and you just can't have a situation where, in the words of one of my friends in the Senate, our Reverend Raphael Warnock, some people don't want some people to vote. And then what happens is they come up with all these rules, and if suddenly you can't vote on Saturday, or you can't vote by mail all of a sudden, all these things that have been going on around the country. And I ended up chairing the Rules Committee in the Senate, and we have worked really hard on getting some minimal standards in place on federal law so that you don't have what's happening across the country. And I'm also really worried about threats on election officials and some of what we've seen in these last few elections. One of the election administrators, a Republican over in Pennsylvania, I had him at a hearing. He talked about how his family had to leave their house because Al Schmidt, because of threats against them. And that kind of thing was going on all over the country. So all of this means your vote to right is precious. Yeah. And you've got to see it that way and exercise it, because there are some people that want to take it away from you.
Thank you for sharing that, because again, the notion of connecting your vote and democracy with your life. For you, it was about your child that kind of inspired you. And you also talked about these rights being stripped from us. And that leads me to you, Kathy. A lot of people know you here in Delaware, but can you tell our Every Woman audience what got you interested in this issue in particular of voting rights and democracy and even public service?
Well, thank you, Congresswoman and Senator. It's an honor to be with these very strong, accomplished women today to talk about the right to vote. I view the right to vote as the most important right we have in America. My mom used to tell me, I was raised by a single mom, and she always voted. And she told me people fought for this right. People died for this right. People in parts of our country were thrown in prison for trying to exercise this right. And so it is foundational to our democracy, and we can never take it for granted. And all of us must be vigilant in protecting that fundamental right. Even here in Delaware, where the far right attacked two of our most important voting rights, early voting and absentee voting, permanent absentee voting. Those rights are incredibly important to working families. Right. They're very important to people who are homebound, can't leave their homes. They're very important to our service members and so everyday working Americans in this country. And so we need to make sure we protect those rights. Those rights were under attack even in the blue safe state of Delaware. And I went to court and fought to have those rights reinstated. And the Supreme Court of the state of Delaware reinstated the rights. So right now in Delaware, our voting rights are secure. But that doesn't stop us from being vigilant throughout the country. Attorneys general throughout our country are banding together to fight lawsuits and to ensure that people have that right to vote.
You know, I think it's important to put into context for people because you hear all the time how important voting is. And I think for some people, they feel like, well, what difference does it make? And, you know, even as you were both speaking, you think about some of the things that are important and precious to us. You know, when I think about my work on clean slate legislation, or the work that we've been able to do to bring clean drinking water to parts of our state, or focus on clean air monitors, or jobs in the economy. These things are tied to our ability to get the resources. They're tied to our ability to pass the laws. They're tied to our vote. And so, you know, as we have this conversation, I want to dig a little bit deeper into this conversation. But before we really get started, I want to level set with someone who was really special to me. You know, we know that our democracy hangs in the balance. You know, Amy, you and I saw it firsthand when on January 6th, you know, we were there when insurrectionists stormed the Capitol. You know, many people know I was trapped up in the gallery on that day, up in the balcony. And so we saw how fragile it is and how one person's obsession with power can, you know, really try to overturn the will of the American people. And so we know that this fight for our democracy is vital, it's urgent, it's important. And, you know, if that right wasn't so important, people wouldn't be trying to take it away from us, wouldn't be trying to make you, you know, travel distances to do it, or stand in lines to do it, or count jelly beans to do it. And so we continue today to see these attacks across the country on whether it's voter suppression, whether it's gerrymandering, where they draw the lines in a way that, you know, is unfair, and efforts to make it harder for people, whether it's people of color, whether it's our seniors, or individuals with disabilities, or people who live in rural areas. We've seen it right here in Delaware. And so I just wanted to take a moment for you to hear why these fights are still so important. And I was reminded of a conversation that I had a few years ago with the late, great Congressman John Lewis, who was a champion of voting rights. Let's hear John's words about voting.
My colleague, Lisa. Let me just say that the vote is almost sacred. It is precious.
Yes.
It is the most powerful, nonviolent instrument or tool we have in a democratic society.
You know, it was so powerful hearing John's voice. You know, like Kathy, I could just feel you take that deep breath. And you think about what is at stake in this moment. You know, we talk about all the things that are on the ballot. And we think about our moment to run this race. And, you know, I would love for both of you to talk about the federal level, what's happening now, what do we expect to see, what do we hope to see as well, and then on the state level, sort of the battle that we just went through and what needs to happen as we move forward to make sure that we codify, that we put into law the protections that we need. So, Senator, if you could talk a little bit about what's happening on the federal level, and we could even talk about some of the things that are actually in the legislation, because a lot of people don't realize this is bigger than just that vote. You know, it's also when can people vote? Is it a national holiday? What is the influence of dollars into these races? All of that deal with our democracy. Share a little bit about the bill.
Well, first of all, Lisa, I just want to thank you for sharing that clip because you're carrying on the torch for John Lewis. You've done that with your voting rights work in the House of Representatives, and it's very, very important right now. As the Attorney General just explained, there's a tax even in states like Delaware on the right to vote. So really three things. The first one is this Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Act. They're kind of combined. And the first one is to make sure that you have minimum standards when it comes to things like ballot boxes and making sure you can mail in your votes so that won't be taken away. By the way, that is the way of voting in a very red state, Utah, and a number of other red states. So this idea that the Republicans would be challenging it makes no sense at all. And that also you can do something when it comes to money in politics, which is really the second thing. For me, just coming from not a lot of money, I couldn't put money into my own race. I still remember when I was first running for Senate and I couldn't get anyone to contribute because no one could say my last name. It wasn't as easy as yours. And so I was calling, no one would call me back. And I finally just called everyone I knew in my life. And I raised what is still an all-time Senate record. I raised $17,000 from ex-boyfriends. And as my husband has pointed out, it's not an expanding base. So that was the sort of propelled me to think this isn't quite fair.
Right.
So, you know, we should really reverse the Citizens United decision, which allowed all this outside money to flow in. And I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, you want to be able to have your own say and not have billionaires have more of a say than you. And so that idea of everything from making sure you have matching funds for financing elections to making sure there's transparency so people understand who is funding these things. Right. Then the very last thing would be with the advent of artificial intelligence, AI, that we have some limits on what can happen with advertisements politically. And I have a bipartisan bill with a conservative Republican that basically says you can take down deepfakes, not satire, but that if someone is pretending to be you, Lisa, and you can't tell it's you or not, it's outrageous. So people are going to see these videos or ads and they're not going to know if it's the candidate they love or that the candidate they don't like because you can't tell the difference. Right. So putting in some standards nationally on that would be a very smart thing to do.
Right. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
And what has to happen next to make sure that this
I think that having a president and a House and a Senate that would clearly support these types of bills, that's how you get it done. Because just my perspective is the Republicans have even blocked the AI bill. They blocked the Freedom to Vote Act. And so we really, in the Senate, will need an exemption from the filibuster, which I know you're supportive of, I'm supportive of, to get a federal standard like almost every other democracy has when it comes to voting rights.
Thank you so much for being such a champion on this. I think a lot of people didn't even know we have these different committees in the House and the Senate where bills come through. And someone just the other day said, it's not the Rules Committee. I said, yeah, it is.
In the Senate, it is.
Amy is leading this in the Senate. Thank you. And Kathy, talk a little bit about what is happening here in Delaware and where we go for the future of making sure that we're protecting voting rights.
Thanks for that question. And let me just say, your courage on January 6th is something I will always take with me so that my children and grandchildren know what it takes to really protect democracy. in our country. In Delaware, we don't have vote by mail. It was struck down by our court, even though vote by mail is present, as you say, Senator, in red states and blue states, and it's pretty gosh darn accepted for many years, but we don't have it. We need a constitutional amendment to have vote by mail passed in our blue state. That
or
takes me
for the federal elections, if you did a federal standard.
Exactly. And that takes me to the point that who we elect as our leaders at the federal level and at the state level really matters. That's the difference between being able to vote by mail and not being able to vote by mail. And the more we can expand the right to vote and the ease and accessibility through which we vote, the more democratic our country becomes. We did pass a law that banned guns at polling places. That's a very practical, sensible law, because frankly, if people see guns at polling places, who's going to want to go into the polling place? Right. But that one wasn't so hard. Vote by mail will take some real willpower, and it will take a while to get done. But I am confident that we will get it done with the right elected leaders in place.
No, thank you. You know, what an incredible conversation. And I thank you both for this. And want to make sure that you all know that Delaware's voter registration deadline is October 12th, just 4 days after this taping. And a litany of other states also have their registration deadlines coming up. So tell your friends, tell your family across the country that people should check to see where they're registered. If they're registered, if they haven't registered, they need to do it. And they can go to iwillvote.com for more information. But this is important, that people are more likely to vote if they have a plan to do so that fits their lives. So we know so much is at stake in 2024, and we need massive voter turnout. Encourage people that you're connected to, that their vote is connected to their lives. And we'll end with this last question to both of you. Why do you think it is so important to vote in this election?
Well, I think everyone knows there's so much on the line when it comes to having people's back on bringing down costs. You got to decide, does that matter to you? Who do you want to vote for? Whether it's about freedom to make your own decisions about your health care, all those things are on the line. But I also believe it's your sacred duty. And the Attorney General mentioned January 6th. I made that walk at 3:30 in the morning, and it was just the Vice President Pence, the former Vice President, and another Republican senator and myself, with these 3 pairs of young women with the mahogany boxes containing all the electoral ballots for the country. The morning had been a celebration. We make the walk, yay, we get to the House, you're there. And then they objected to Arizona. We go back, and that's when the insurrection occurs. Everyone's taken out of there. Chaos, people are shot, over 100 police officers injured. And then fast forward, 3:30 in the morning, this time we're walking alone, except for 3 of us and those 3 pairs of women with those boxes. And in it was Delaware's votes. And we walked over broken glass and by pillars spray painted with racist vulgarities, but we made it. And you were there, and we got there, and democracy prevailed. So if that story doesn't make you think about the march we're still on for democracy that John Lewis took over that bridge and that we still are on today, I just think we have a sacred obligation to vote. And then the final thing I'll say is that Minnesota has the highest voter turnout in the state. So for the people of Delaware, if, I'll make a bet, and if somehow you can beat us at 75%, I will get you fried cheese curds for the Minnesota State Fair. So I'm just saying that we take it seriously in our state, and I always try to get other states to bet with us, and then we always win. But, it's possible. So, it is so having that feeling where everyone, 75% of the people vote. They come up to me all the time. Sometimes they say, I didn't vote for you, but I agree with you on this. I did vote for you, but this. They just feel like they're part of that franchise. And I think that's one of the most important things about voting.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And and taking us back into that moment. And thank you for your leadership. I mean, again, when we think about that day, January 6th, and your role that history will show that you played in it. I'm just so honored to have you here in Delaware. Truly, truly honored to have you here in Delaware. I don't know if I want the cheese curds, but and there might be a better incentive for Delawareans, but again, we want to take you up on that. And I'm going to turn to our Attorney General to please share, why is voting so important to you?
It's always been important because, as the senator said, it's our duty. But it's important because we are all students of history. John Lewis walked over that Emmett Pettus Bridge, and he was horribly beaten for believing in the future of our country as a free country where every vote counts and every vote matters. I know you led people in prayer inside the House on January 6th. My prayer is that every Delawarean and everyone in this country exercises this most fundamental of all rights. And we're going to fight hard to make sure that people who get elected in our state and in our country believe in the rule of law, that they believe in justice, and that they believe that people should vote, not that they're going to block them from voting. And that's why we need to elect leaders like the two of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy, again, for your leadership and for standing up. You know, what I love about Kathy Jennings is that she's like, let's just get it done. It's not a lot of clicks and likes out there that she's worried about. She is just, let's get this stuff done. The words justice that you use, and you know, I think of you when I think of justice. I think of you when I think of freedom. I think of you when I think of advocating for our state. And so thank you for your leadership as well. And as both of you talked, and especially talking about the obligation of voting and the sacred duty, I also think it's a sacred privilege. And I'm so glad, again, you took me back to that space up there in the balcony when all I could do was pray for love over hate, you know, and hope over fear. And I carry with me so many places, so many people have seen this scarf that was really the document that allowed our great-great-great-grandfather who had been enslaved to Georgia to have the right to vote. And, you know, from 1867, the returns of qualified voters in Reconstruction oath. And at the bottom is the X that he marked because he couldn't read or write. Wow. And I carry this and I think about what people did for this right. You know, whether it was women locking arms, marching for this right, you know, whether it was folks coming out of internment camps, like the Japanese saying, this is my right, Native Americans, you could literally go down the list of folks that fought for this right. And in the video, in John's words, he said the words that we're saying now. We don't want to go back. We don't want to go back. We want to go forward. And so I am so grateful that you were here to talk about this important conversation. I hope that people will see it as a duty, as a right, as a privilege, but also connect their lives to their ballot, from clean air, clean drinking water, health care. All of those things are connected to your right to vote. We began the program with a quote from the late, great Congressman John Lewis, and now we'll conclude the program with his words of wisdom.
We cannot become frustrated. We cannot get lost in a sea of despair. Yes. We must always be hopeful and optimistic that it's all going to work out. Yeah. But we got to help it work out.
We got to help it work out. Every year, someone tells you this is the most important election of our lifetimes. Well, in the words of Congressman Jim Clyburn, this one is the most consequential. The consequences of this election we will feel for decades, if not generations. Our democracy, our freedoms, our rights are on the ballot. And every race, from the top of the ticket to the bottom, counts. I'm reminded of how close we were to losing our democracy on January 6th. And I will tell you, as I watched those guns being drawn on the House floor, and as I could hear the banging behind me, as I said, I prayed for love over hate and hope over fear. That was all I could think to do in that moment. But also on that day, people ask if it was my worst or if it was, the worst day I've had in Congress. And I'll tell you, especially hearing from you, it was the toughest day, but it was also for me the proudest moment because we came back.
That's right.
We came back and we certified that election, and democracy prevailed. And so our democracy is also on the line in November, but we can win. We can pass voting rights protection once and for all. And we're not just in this voting for candidates, we're voting for the future of our democracy and of our country. And for me personally, I'm also voting for my granddaughter. So no matter what side you support, I always tell people, connect your vote to your life. As I've shared, all those things that we hold dear are on the ballot. So we want you to vote. And we want you to make sure that we protect that vote for you, your family, and that we get everybody out. We want to beat Minnesota in the number of people that are coming out to vote. And we want to let people know it matters to us because it's your life, it's your power. Use it.
Hi, I'm Kendall. I'm an education advocate and a mom. And I'm here with my friends today on DETV Every Woman. And we're going to be talking about managing life. But before we get to that, we're going to introduce ourselves.
Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is Shayna Starks. I am a comic book writer and a singer-songwriter. I am so happy to be on DETV Every Woman.
I am Mecca Joy. I am an entrepreneur and HR professional, and I am super excited to be here. And last, but certainly not least.
Hey, y'all. I'm Max Vanity. I, too, am a writer. I write reviews in the space of travel, dining, leisure, and novelty, and I write music as well.
So today we're talking about managing life, and earlier you said,
I drop coffee on
this. I can do this. So tell us, how does it that you manage life?
So I did name drop Stephen Covey. I am of the school of Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And those habits include being proactive, putting first things first, which is a big component of time management. Understanding time management is exactly how you manage life.
Okay. I don't know about you. You're supposed to time management and me, procrastination is a thing. What about you guys? Oh, I'm definitely working on not procrastinating because I don't like rushing and I don't like for my work to come back. As an entrepreneur, I do graphic design. And if I procrastinate and a project is due and, I wait till the last minute, client might come back and want edits and, then the service, my service diminishes. So I try to get it done as soon as possible. That way I'm not waiting till the last minute. I learned that in college too. I procrastinated a lot and sitting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, writing papers was not fun. And I know that my grade definitely was affected by procrastinating. So I try not to as much as possible in these recent years.
Yeah. Correct. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a procrastinator. I work well under pressure. Like
even when I write music, like I literally can be outside of the studio. I'm like 10 minutes to go, and I'm like, all right. And I think I'm getting good music going on here. But yeah, I do struggle with that. So if y'all can give me some pointers, I am all open ears.
Well, so managing lashes also, it's not just about time, but it's about like relationships and health, right? Do you take care of you first, or do you put everybody else in front of your needs?
So here's how it went for me. Obviously, we all have those friends who just seem to have it all together. And I had a friend, and she just seemed to have it all together. And for my birthday, she bought me a planner, like pen to paper, planner. And I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, nothing.
But it was a happy planner. And I don't know if you guys know what the happy planner is. It has like all these stickers and stuff like that. And then one day I just opened a planner. I'm like, okay, I like stickers. Then I went to Michael's and got me some like colored pens. And I'm like, this is my life. So my life should look good. And then while I was writing these things down, it would get etched into my brain and it would haunt me. Because I already wrote at 11 o'clock, I'm going to do this. And then I got the stickers and I did all that. And I'm like, well, my life looks beautiful. It looks like a great life. And it was so great about the happy. I started putting pictures into it. So at the end of the year, I had a scrapbook. I didn't have a planner. So, and then something about
check hair off. There you go.
The way that feels, it is, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like Captain America, like it's always getting done. I'm gonna tell you my little hack. These days when I write in my planner, I don't write the dates. So if I write on Tuesday, I'm gonna file my taxes, and I don't file my taxes on Tuesday, but I don't write a date, and I just continue to write my tasks. On Tuesday, I will see that same Tuesday with those same tasks until they actually get completed.
Except that you got to file taxes.
Well, I mean, I got a couple of months.
That's right. Google Calendar is my friend. I always tell everybody, if you are not on my calendar, I'm sorry. It didn't happen. I never talked to you. So that's something that I do use every single day. How about you?
I use Google Calendar, but also I read a book recently. It was called The 5-Second Rule. I can't remember the lady's name, but she is a famous author. And yeah, not Brene Brown. It was Mel Robinson. Yes. Yep. And in that book, it was like literally her saying, when you think about something, you got to count 5 seconds and then you go do it. I'll be honest, that helped me a lot. Waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, wanting to get up, go work out and do different things before my day started was very important to me. And I didn't know how else to do it. So I joined a group, and that group woke up at 5 a.m. But there were some days where I didn't feel like getting up, and it would be that I would hear Mel Robinson in the back, like, 5 seconds, Mecca, 5 seconds, get up, let's go. So that is one way that has helped me with not procrastinating or putting things off and not doing it. But I think mental health is important with that. I think when you procrastinate and you put things off, a lot of times you're either distracted or, you might be suffering from some self-doubt or, some things that you just don't want to do it just yet, So I think that, definitely paying attention to where you may be struggling to get those things done is definitely important as well.
Well, I want to say, though, the procrastinators are on this couch are telling you, we're like, I'm good. Yeah. I do, but for me, the procrastination is like, I do it better, right? Because I promised myself that I would get it done. So I'm going to fall on my face, so I will get it done. Yeah. And just.
Yeah. Sometimes you need accountability partners, too.
When it comes to art comes from within. So you create that on your own accord. So I'm never, any artists I work with, any creators I work with, That has to come from within. So when it comes to art, I'm always just like, when you feel it, then you do it. Never with art do I expect a deadline. I always welcoming. But when it comes to my articles, which are a little bit more critical, that can be done. It has to get done. Proactivity is doing the grunt work, the things that we don't want to do. And if we're saying to ourselves, and when I'm that bored. Like, really? All right. And these are the questions that I have with myself, because I say, well, you think you want that in a bag of chips? Well, I don't see no chips.
Sure. Yeah. Fulfiller. I think it all depends too on what's important. Like if it's washing the dishes, I might procrastinate. You know what I mean? That can wait until later. But you know, certain things, I don't know.
So somebody brought up the mental health piece. I think this is that managing life piece, right? Right. What is it about life that makes us sometimes crazy and not able to manage, right? What is it in your life? Do you have things in your life that land hard in life sometimes?
Stress and anxiety. Like, I have a lot of people saying you need to stop having people live in your head that don't pay rent. And that always sits in my head, because I'm always like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it could be something that I don't even know is wrong with me. I just be on edge one day. But that's why I had actually started my comic books, because it helps me relieve some of the anxiety. I might be writing about a man in my comic book and getting all my frustrations out in the book, rather than, telling them face to face. So it's just different coping methods for anxiety relief.
That's managing life, right? Finding those different hacks, finding that happy planner, the comic book, and
I got a hammock outside of my house. I have a hammock outside of my house. Recently, I've really been going in and doing things that really bring me joy. So like I like to hike. Recently, me and a girlfriend, we've been hammocking. So we go out to a park and hammock. I actually set up some cords in front of my house or in my backyard so that I can hammock. So anytime I'm feeling stressed, I go sit out in my hammock and I just relax. So I experience the anxiety, and I'm going through menopause. So sometimes when I'm stressed, I start sweating just like I just did now. And so if that's noticeable, I was having a hot flash. But that's breathing meditation is something I do a lot too. So finding what works for you, I think, is important.
So I gotta say, look, I think we're all gonna go get a hammock and we're gonna go hammock guests together.
Go here.
And one of the next episodes, I believe we're gonna be talking about menopause, because we don't talk about menopause enough. Thank you all for joining us today on DETV Every Woman. We're having great time talking about managing life and how sometimes we don't manage it.
No.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Good evening, ladies. Good evening. Good evening. It's so good to be with you here today on DETV's Every Woman Network. And so I am ecstatic that we can come together and have conversations from her perspective. And so my name is Tanya Atkins. I am a Delaware native. I'm an HR professional. And so I am looking forward to the conversation today.
Yes. My name is Thais Greca. I am a Delaware native as well. Well, I moved here when I was 5, so originally from New Jersey. And I am a tech enthusiast, so I'm excited to have my perspective with this as well.
My name is Heather Cox Code, social media and management for almost 15 years, Delaware native as well. And yeah, this is going to be an amazing. You ladies are great. So I'm Dr. Dawn Shree Paramore. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm a mother. I'm a trauma specialist.
So I'm looking to see where we're going in terms of mental health. That's important to me. So I would love to hear conversation about how Senator or Vice President Kamala Harris is going to handle those issues.
Yes. What are you looking forward to when you think about what the future holds and the path that we have to take to get there? Yeah. So what I talk about a lot is I just hope that we don't throw everything at her, like the kitchen sink. I know we did that with Obama. There was just so much to do after that last system was in office. I was going to say system, keeping names out of it. I get a little finicky. But throwing the kitchen sink at Obama, at least we got great health care. But there were so many other missed opportunities, especially coming from the Black community. I know a lot were hoping that we would get more reparation-like programming and policy making, right, that he may have missed the mark on. But it's not to miss what he actually put in place. So when we're looking at Kamala, I'm hoping that, you know, of all the things that we want her to do, make sure that we focus on where our commonalities are in her platform, because there's a bunch that we would want her to do, but it's just not realistic. It's not realistic in the time. So your thoughts on that?
I mean, I really do like how she brings a lot of diverse groups together.
Yeah.
I mean, she is from, I mean, her mom was a single mom.
Yes.
Here, right? And her husband, she has a huge eclectic family.
Yes.
Modern family, blended family like myself.
Yeah.
And it's just really nice to see somebody that like I actually can see myself and my story in, other than the alternative that we have to work with.
Right.
So I'm really excited because it's going to generate a lot of buzz and excitement, and people actually are able to see, like, I relate to this person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Instead of who can really relate to the billionaire class.
Right.
Not a lot of people. Not a lot of people.
No.
So I think as a mother, well, most of us on the couch are mothers. You know, I want to make sure that she speaks to the female perspective. You know, there's a lot on the ballot this year, especially when it comes to feminine rights. You know, so I'm just honestly afraid that if we have the wrong person in office, our rights are going to be taken as women away from us. We're not going to be able to.
Already happened.
Right. So, you know, with that being said, if he gets in office, that's going to be a problem. So it's going to be up to Kamala to really step up and make sure that she's speaking for all of us.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to politely push back because I think that's the call to action. We can't leave it only up to Kamala to do the work that has to be done. We have 106 days until the election.
Right. Yeah.
We have to be in the trenches. We have to be telling the stories. We have to be speaking the truth. We have to be talking about last night she raised $81 million at 44,000 women on one call. You know, we are here to do the work with her, and I think it's important. And when we look to the future, we can't do it alone.
So I need you just that part, because most people will look at politicians and think it is their job and their job alone for them to speak for it. And you have a really good point. So what would you say to those viewers out there right now that's like, well, why do I have to do that? It's her job to go hit the trail and get that voice out. Like, how would you encourage them to join? Because there's a lot of ways you can do that. You can pay money. There's a lot of ways.
There are a lot of ways. So you can give money, right? You can give your time. You can just talk about it. So when you have someone who might be spewing some negativity or even some misinformation, and we remember the last election, social media, the media in general, was plagued with misinformation. So we have to be ready and armed with the facts. What does she do? What does she stand for? Who does she stand for? And what are we looking to do in the future, right? And I think that we all have to, you know, really lean into the fact that we can't do it alone.
Right.
If we do it alone, we go slowly. If we do it together, we're going to get there. We're going to get there quickly. And we're going to have lasting change. And I think that's what's necessary. Right now, like you said, so much is on the line, right? So many of the rights that our ancestors, our family, it wasn't that long ago that we were fighting and in the trenches, fighting for the rights so that everyone could live in the United States and be free. And that's what we're fighting for. Literally, our freedom is on the line. And so I say, if you enjoy your freedom, if you enjoy knowing that you have health care or that you have access to it, if you enjoy all the luxuries that we have when we sit in the United States and we're comfortable and we're protected and we've got the luxuries that so many people around the world don't have, if you enjoy that, then it's time to get involved. I don't care what you do. Just do something. You can't sit on the sideline. 106 days is not a long time. We've got to get moving, which is why we're here tonight.
I'm a member of D9. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. And right now there's a strong push for Black sororities and fraternities, what we call stroll to the pole. So that's our way of coming together. I mean, we all know kind of the different things of different sororities and fraternities, how we haggle each other, but this is not the time for that. So we're pulling together and we're strolling to the polls. And that's how we're handling that. But I just wonder, like, what are some of the grassroots efforts that we can do in our communities to get that out? Especially if you have something to say, you want your voice heard.
Well, I know with Gen Z and Gen Z particularly, I mean, they are so involved with anything political, anything involving the earth and the world. And they are just so, like, they are so keyed in right now. And I did read this, I think it was an article. There was multiple articles. One, it was like, since the last election, over 20 million boomers have passed away, right? So you got to think about the shifting demographics.
Yeah.
And then with Gen Z now, by the time when the election comes in November, there's going to be 44 million Gen Zs able to vote. I mean, just with the shifting demographics, I feel as though that people want somebody like Kamala to like have to, that somebody is like it's parallel to life. They can actually see themselves in our leader and not like, you know, the person that we shall not say his name.
And so I think with that statistic, I mean, that's a large number. We have to make sure that those young professionals, those young, you know, soon to be graduates that have already turned 18, that you're registered to vote and that you're there and you understand what's lying on it, right? There is actually something at risk. And so we have to make sure that we educate them. And not just, you know, yes, we Gen Zers, but I think those who don't necessarily think that it's time. Well, you know, it's not time until it's time, and it's time right now.
Exactly.
Right? And so how do we educate and make sure people who are maybe on the fence, right? We're talking about, you know, not just speaking straight to those who already support. If you know, are not sure who you're going to vote for, we need to speak to those people too. What would you say if someone is not sure who they're voting for? What would you say right now?
I mean, I said, well, research Project 2025. That's exactly what I would say to that.
Right.
It's going to strip a lot of people's rights. And I mean, it's already, just go look up the Heritage Foundation, A.D. Vance being the VP. I mean, come on. Like they want to take us back to somewhere that we don't want to go.
1,000%.
Good old time.
1,000%.
We don't want that. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And neither does the younger generation.
But now you're moving into a topic.
Right.
Yes.
But before we get there, I'm not sure if you watched the Republican National Convention and Trump's speech. So specifically when they heard Biden's name, the audience started booing. And he was like, no, you can't boo. He's like, we need to allow them into our community. We need to allow them to understand we're trying to unite America. So when you were talking about how can we be a grassroots campaign, the younger voters, you don't have to worry about. They're already passionate, right? And then Black women, we already know you don't have to worry about our community because we already go out and we vote.
Right.
But what we need to do as Black women as well, and I guess the entire country, is to take that opportunity to reach across the aisle. Are we really trying to engage with people that aren't like us? Because those are the people in those landlocked states, that should be our focus. The East Coast is fine. The West Coast is fine. It's that middle ground where those electoral college votes will matter. Like you said, we can't shift them. It's the middle ground and then the southern states, that L shape in the middle of our country. Right. If we can't figure out how to break into them, not just focusing on the younger ones, but break into them and understanding this is our fight. We're thinking about like race. Back in the day, you know, before it was like a racial thing, it was poor versus rich, the haves and the have-nots, and it became racial. But literally, this is the haves and the have-nots, even though people aren't seeing that. And you literally have terror and chaos versus like hope and growth, right?
Like, how do you go across the aisle when they spit such vitriol, such hatred? It's like the paradox of forget. It's like we're too nice. We allow people, we let things roll off our shoulders. Let it go under the rug. How do you mean? It's the paradox of tolerance.
Right.
It's tolerant. And because we're too tolerant, they can wipe us out. So how do you cross the aisle when the other party is for the Proud Boys?
Right. But see, that's the thing. Like, okay, so one thing is, if you can talk about policy, you can cross that aisle.
1,000%.
Like there is policy that Trump has put into place that I have no problem with. He put into place that if a person wants to immigrate to this country and they are from South America, they need to have documents that every country they march through denied them. So let's just say if you're saying that Colombia is bad and you end up in Venezuela, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to the U.S. No, you're in Venezuela now. So live there. But we're allowing caravans to come through South America and just say we're going to the U.S., which is fine. But literally, if your home is so bad, why are all the other 12 countries you march through bad as well? So I did not disagree with that policy. So when I talk to people on the other side of the aisle, I'm like, I get it. Trump had some really good policy. He tried to make what he could better, but he also created chaos. And you see what the country had on that. So it's like, do you want someone who can just put in good policy and create chaos? Or do you want someone who can put in good policy and then join us together? So it's right. You have to understand more than just what CNN is saying, right? You have to really take a chance to be like, okay, if I had to like the other party, if I had to like the Republican Party, let me find one policy I agree with. Okay, that opens the door. You know what I mean?
At one point I was married, my ex-husband, he's deceased now, but he was Republican.
Yes.
And so at the time I was independent. So I was like, I'm so liberal here and there. But then at one point I was talking to someone and it said, you need to get off the fence, they told me. So I had to make a decision based on where my views were. I had to make a decision, whether it be, Democrat or Republican. I chose Democrat. But with that being said, we had a very divided house. Now, there are some things that we came together on in views that we agreed, but then there were some things that are just fundamentally different. And on top of it, we were interracially married. So there was a lot on the table.
Yeah.
So I think listening and making sure like you're truly hearing what the other person has to say, because if their opinion is different than yours, okay, I can respectfully hear what you have to say, but there's some parts I might disagree with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's okay to disagree.
It's absolutely okay to disagree. I think that is going to be one of Kamala's strong points. I think when we look at just her disposition, her demeanor, the fact that she's well-versed in a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
One of those being the United States. She has been in office for almost 4 years, right? And so she knows the policies that have been put forth. She knows the policies that haven't made it to the table, but are good policy. So I think that is an absolutely pro for her, that she's going to be able to bring us together and unite us.
Yeah. Like something that's unpopular from her brand, let's say, in the Black community is how tough she was on crime. But guess who that will be popular with? That middle L I'm talking about.
Right.
They want someone that's tough on crime. And her being a prosecutor, she knows how to talk to that person and to that population.
Yeah, I think, but do they really care about law and order anymore when they're,
No, they like that tough on crime.
We do.
Literally, they like that tough on crime language, because when you're talking about bringing people here that immigrate and you're going to deport them forever, that's tough on crime. Or the immigrants that are just robbing and killing everyone because everyone has mental issues that's coming across the border, according to Trump. Being tough on crime. So if she says, like, as a prosecutor, I was tough on crime and I got dinged for it, and that's okay because I want to make sure our communities are safe, that will ring a bell with the middle states.
But that's just it. She was doing her job. Her job was to prosecute.
Yeah.
And I know, like, there's a lot of people that I know that are not for her because they said, well, you're prosecuting Black men and then you're just trying to take Black men down. Her job was to prosecute.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what your color was. It just so happened that they were Black men.
Yeah.
But she did her job. But as a woman, you're doing your job.
Yeah.
Why are you getting dinged for doing your job?
But she did her job as a prosecutor in California, but also created a reentry program that had a 10% recidivism rate, when California had a 53% recidivism rate.
Right.
So not only did she do her job, she saw the impact it was having on our community and tried to fix it.
And I will say, though, because you saying that jogged a memory, that a lot of people thought that she was soft on crime because of that.
Right. Yeah.
But then she kind of reworded it and was like, no, I'm not soft on crime. I'm smart on crime.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
You're going to have those low level offenders like going through re-education programs and all of that instead of, just being in jail and not getting the help that they need. So yeah, smart on crime.
So speaking of doing your job, can we just take a moment and recognize President Biden for actually doing his job?
Yeah.
How many times have we been in organizations
or situations where leadership needs to change because of pride or ego, that person will not relinquish or set the next person up for success. So we've got a situation where it's time, something. Yes. Clearly he agrees. And he's done that with such grace, such pride, such integrity. Right. And so when we look across the aisle and we see, okay, the other person that's running, you can't even call your vice president, right? No. You can't call your vice president to say, run with me. It's not an option. So when we talk about who do I want to lead me, who do I want to lead us into this next era, it has to be someone with integrity. Yeah. It has to be someone, you know, who is going to stand on the principles of leadership. It's important. And truth. Yes, absolutely. Major truth. Yeah. If they don't stand on truth, I mean, like, we have the person literally just constantly lying and lying and lying. Yeah. I feel like the whole entire country has been gaslit for years now. Yeah. So I just think truth and honesty, I think, is what is gonna for the vice president for sure. And I mean, that's parent. Yeah. Right. She hides that, you know. And she served as a VP aftermath the insurrection. Yes. Yeah. Aftermath of COVID. Yes. And then not to just highlight, obviously, she is a woman of color. So just knowing that, she already has a host of experiences throughout her life that have prepared her for what she's about to go through now, which the road will not be easy because this country had its own debt to settle with its history, right? But she seems like she's well prepared. Biden obviously prepared her through his experience as well. So I'm just trying to figure out, really, what do we think she should look for in a VP? Ooh, that's a good question. It is a good question. I'm just glad Biden dropped out and not a name. The way that he did after the RNC, because they did was just talk about Biden. Yes. This the whole time. Yeah. And then boom, right when that was done, he dropped. Now and it's just like, figurated and taking it over the like aging is a gift. Aging is a gift. Yes. It is a gift. I'm like, yes, Biden is president at his age. And I'm not campaigning for him to rejoin. Right. But I'm just saying aging is a gift. And it's like, you know, Trump is old. He is now. I'm just going to put it out there. He chose a young VP. But it's just one of my sources, Wendy Okopo, she said that she showed this like clip on her Instagram, and it shows the VP or his running mate and saying, oh, I can't stand Trump. And then on the next, oh, he's the best thing since sliced bread. So I think he was trying to go for that vote by choosing a young running mate. Yes. But well, he's also he's like one of besties with a Heritage Foundation person because he had left his PayPal, his Venmo receipt open and all of his contacts. So everybody saw all of his payments. That's a gypsy. Man, that's a gypsy. Yeah. Yeah. So who would you like to see for a VP pick? I'm not sure exactly who I would like to see, but I know that I want to make sure that is a good balance for her. And that is just that I don't know the people that they're naming now well enough, right? Because you always want that balance. But I do know, and I hate to say it, that I am not a fan of California and new stuff. Yeah. Well, just because of what's going on in the state, it would not be a strength for her to bring him along. Well, and I think we need, two people from different spaces, area, states. Okay, so as we wrap up, final thoughts, anything that, is important to know as we lean into the next 106 days, what do we have? Final thoughts, one word. One word? That was two. I was just going to say reach across the aisle. I'd say just keep that buzz going. Buzz. Unity. Yeah. And I'm going to go with mobilize. It's on mobilize. It's time to move. So thank you, ladies, for being here. This has been a great conversation, and we're off to the races. Yes. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Tompkins, and I am so delighted to have you all join us tonight for an amazing conversation that we are having with some women leaders And so I have an esteemed panel or esteemed guests that are here with us tonight. And so Val, we'll kick it off with you. Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Valerie Longhurst. I'm the Speaker of the House, the first female Speaker of the House in the history of Delaware in the House of Representatives. I got involved because of a personal issue with my daughter. My daughter had alopecia where she lost all of her hair. And as a mother, if you have children, you know that they mean everything to you. And you want to maintain your children's self-esteem and make sure that their future is bright. When my daughter was in 2nd grade, she lost all of her hair, her eyebrows, and everything. So as a mother, I became her advocate. I didn't know what advocacy was until I knew what she was going to have to go through, and I had to be the stronger person to get her through that. So I tried to raise awareness. I went into the schools, and one day I called my state representative, who was a male Republican in my district, and I wanted to do a 5K to raise awareness, and he ignored my phone call. He ignored my phone call. You don't ignore a woman, especially a woman with a child, right? And that was the biggest mistake he ever made.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what does this state representative do? I had no idea what a state rep was, wasn't involved in politics at all. And I was like, so they do what? They go do policy, they help people? I'm like, well, I can help people because if I had an issue with my daughter, is he listening to other people? And I wanted to be that voice. So I was like, well, I could do that.
Yeah.
Actually had no idea what I was getting myself into. I still don't. But so I decided, I'm like, well, what does that person do? And I met a few people, and actually John Carney was the lieutenant governor at the time. Okay. And he came to my house, and my kids were running all over the place, and I'm like, oh my God, I have the lieutenant governor in my house, and talking to me about the good and bad, ugly, about running for office. And when he got done with me, I realized that I needed to do something bigger for myself and for my daughter. And I needed to rise up to the occasion because I knew he wasn't listening to other people. He wasn't listening to other people. So I decided to run for office. And I lost the first time around. It was very shocking because anybody in this room like to win or like to lose? No. Yeah,
we're all winners here for sure. We're all winners.
I do not like to lose. So I ran again the second time. And the second time when I ran, I only won by 26 votes.
Wow.
So your vote does count, your voice counts. And when I got into office, I could tell you when I got on the House floor and I sat there and they called my name, I'm like, what do I do now? Really, I had no idea what I was doing. But 20 years later, I became the majority whip, the majority leader, and then the Speaker of the House. My daughter is now 30 years old. She's a thriving, beautiful young woman who is stronger than I could ever be. So I think I did a pretty darn good job.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Let's give it up.
Yeah.
Marla.
So I don't even know where to begin. That was so beautiful. Yeah. And I identify with the advocacy piece of it. And as an autoimmune disorder survivor myself, and I see a sister vitiligo survivor out in the audience, you know, it takes strong advocates for individuals that do not have access to people in positions of power. So I thank you for all of us to be down there being the badass that you are. So I too am in politics, but not in front, but behind the scenes. My name is Marla Blunt Carter.
Yeah.
The blunt is what stands out. I grew up in a very political family. My dad first ran for office in 1982 and lost. And that gave him the drive and the desire to run again, ultimately serving on city council for 24 years here in the great city of Wilmington. So I grew up seeing politics and understanding how important it was to our everyday lives. And I don't mean the president. I don't mean the U.S. Senate. I mean city council. I mean state reps. I mean Dover. And so I saw my dad navigating all of these spaces and doing it with a social work perspective. My dad had an MSW in social work, but he was an educator as well. So he worked in the school district for 30 years. But it was the social work piece
that really gave him his moral compass. And that's what he instilled in us. And so, you know, I wanted to see other people like my dad in office. And for the last 25 years, I've been helping people run for office, including our current U.S. Congresswoman and my big sister, Lisa Blunt Rochester. And you made history when you were elected into that top spot. Lisa made history in 2016 when she was elected as the first woman and the first person of color in the U.S. House of Representatives. And hopefully she will make history again when Kamala Harris makes history. That would gotta talk about it. Unbelievable thing. But I think for me, people have seen me as a leader here because I've just been an advocate for different individuals, organizations, and policies that really impact the most vulnerable people. My day job is as an associate professor of social work at Rutgers University. So my desire is to train up as many social workers as I can to be involved in the electoral process, to understand the importance of civic engagement, to create as many Ted Blunts as I can. That's right. That's right. That's what I'm gonna do. That's right. And you know, I pride myself on just being very blunt. I like that. I like that. And people appreciate that honesty because they know it comes from a place of love. So I am an educator. I'm a social worker. I'm a political consultant. I am currently consulting on the Harris-Walz campaign. That's right. That's right. Congratulations. And I've moved in the last 5 or 10 years from an advisor to a consultant. Advisors don't get paid. That hard. Now my advice costs money. Come on now. And so I think it's important that we know our work. That's right. That's right. And so that's where I am right now. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
And then last but not least, how am I going to follow these two, right? That's going to be tough. Well, I'm Yvonne Deadweiler. I'm actually the current president and CEO of the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. Yes. And I am the first, along with my good friend Val, the first female president in 102 years. So that's an exciting thing, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into either. So it was an interesting experience, and I have to thank, of course, my wonderful husband and my children that pushed me to go into leadership, because I really went back to work. And I've been in education, I've been in banking, I've been in various industries. But it was interesting when I joined the chamber, it was more so to just get back into the workforce. I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years. And it was just for me, the main goal of the reason why I do what I do is to make an impact. And that's always been my vision. That's always been a part of my core values, is how can I make an impact? And in this capacity, it's more how can I make an impact, not only in the nonprofit community, but in the business community, in the entrepreneurial community, in the government community. So in different aspects of how can I make a difference. And I think that was part of the reason, because I was so passionate about the work that I was doing, that in 5 years, I went from, director of member relations to president of the Newcastle County Chamber. And it's been a great journey. I have an amazing team that has supported me through the process. And I think that's important when you're in leadership, to have an awesome team, a fantastic team, and a fun team. They're a lot going on work. Yeah, but I have 2 of my team members here. So it's been a great experience, and nothing but short, but I'm happy to do this work.
All right, awesome. Let's get it on. So I will just tell you, I'm really, really excited to just have this conversation, just because of, one, the most recent, or I would say the largest announcement of the summer, right, that has come out, and that is Kamala Harris running for president, right? And so President Joe Biden did formally endorse her.
and she is now the Democratic nominee. But all the yes. But even with all of that, even with her overqualifications, right? You still see misogyny rear its ugly head. And so we see it in so many different ways. And so one way in which I've seen it the last couple of weeks, you know, people keep on, they question her work. They question, what has she done, right? And I think about my day-to-day life. No one no one on the internet is coming to my job and asking, what have you done today? But yet this woman who is sitting in this very high seat, who's overqualified, is being asked that, right? And so one of the things that I think is that a lot of these things that we see, even with the Kamala Harris, is in our everyday lives, especially as women who do lead. And so if let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of those challenges, some of the challenges that you all have faced with leading, right? I heard a lot of firsts up here. And so it's great to be a pioneer, but it's hard. We all know that, right? And so let's just chat about some of these challenges that have come up in your leadership journey. Yeah, whoever, this is a conversation.
Well, I think a lot of it is just more, you have to embrace where you are. You have to embrace where your journey, whether you do get your critics that will come and say, okay, well, is she qualified to do the job, right? Being in a male-dominated world, as you know, it is a little more difficult and challenging, and you do always have to be at your best. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that we can't afford not to be at our best. And so that's always been a challenge, is making sure you're always on, but in an authentic way. Because there's always going to be the naysayers. There's always going to be someone but you have to learn, I think we were talking about this upstairs, is how do you zone that out, right? Because you're really there, do the job, and you have a mission and kind of the vision of where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Now, I don't think you zone it out. I think you let that be your fuel.
Yeah.
And so I don't let the negative perception and the pressure and the expectation be seen as a bad thing. To me, it's a motivation. I'm always going to give my best anyway. So it is not even a distraction anymore. It's almost like an expectation, right? We're like, well, we know we're going to have to do twice as much to get in order for that. So I don't even carry that with me anymore. I just go into the room, do my best, and let that speak for itself. And eventually, the racism, the sexism sort of melts away. You know what I mean? Because the work it speaks for itself, right? And so, and I don't let other people's their bias in any way get in the way of me even doing the work. I don't get upset by it. I mean, society is created on it, you know what I mean? And so I spend my life trying to dismantle these systems. So I'm not surprised when I'm faced with it. You know what I mean? It's there. We just deal with it, unpack it. I don't accept it, but at the same time, I don't let it dictate how I'm going to operate. Right.
Yeah. And what you said about unpacking is really, really, really huge, right? And so in making sure that you contextualize exactly where this is coming from. So what are some of the things that you all do on a regular basis, right? That helps you to unpack those things? Because we say this, right? But when you go into the fire, sometimes, real time, there is very difficult. So what are some of the things that you all do to really unpack that, right? Whether it's relationships or what have you.
Something as simple as, help me to understand what you meant by that. That ain't mine.
Explain
that right back.
That's
Then they're like, oh Lord, what did I say? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to help you with this. You made that mess. So help me to understand.
Yeah.
That was, and then, oh, well, I didn't look. No, but I need to understand so that we can move forward in this project. Right. Yeah. I have them give context for what they just said.
Yeah, see,
for what they just do.
You put it back on them. You're like, I'm not even owning that, right? I'm putting it back on that.
And not even angry.
Right.
Because we got to work together.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, and that's absolutely true, right?
I don't understand where you're coming from, right? Can you explain it to me a little bit more, right? Can you give me some context around that? Absolutely. Anyone else right now?
I actually, I see it as static around me. And because of social media and everything like that, and I'm in the political eye all the time, and people love to hate me, hate to love me. I'm not really sure.
They can't please everyone.
You know, they're gonna, as soon as a woman walks into the room in leadership, they eye you up and down. Hey, did she wear that dress before? Are those shoes the same? But they never ask a man, oh, that tie you wore yesterday.
Yep.
You know, so, you know, when I have to walk up on the dais, everybody's looking at me and they're sizing me up. And if I'm not smiling, it's a whole different day because they're like, Val's mad. But when a guy walks into the room and he's not smiling, it's just kind of like, oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But what I start my day with, I am very much into getting up early in the morning, working out. I get myself involved. I get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I have a routine. I see Ricky at the gym. He used to be at the Y. He didn't go as often as me. I'd be like, where you been a month ago? Like, where have you been? I've done 21 triathlons. I put my energy. So that's biking, swimming, and running. And what I realize is, like, when I'm on that mode and I'm on that train of, like, I'm on the treadmill or I'm riding my bike or I'm walking, I'm putting the day in perspective, being prepared to what's going to happen to me throughout the day, who's going to come at me, how I'm going to handle it. I really spend an hour to an hour and a half a day just, like, listening to my music, my favorite music, and just, like, figuring out how am I going to get through my day, how am I not going to let anybody bother me, how I'm going to let the static go, categorize what I need to do, and stay focused on me and what I need to do and who I need to be, who I need to help, and how to be kind throughout that day. And so when you unpack it, I pack it through physical fitness and just put my mind in right space when you walk into a room that you know is a table full of men, right? And what you're going to be judged on. I walk through my day before I get to my day. And so when something hits me, I am ready for it. And then I just try to move on from there. It is challenging. We know it. You know it. I mean, you know, you're dealing with the same group of, yes, the audience is the same. And to get where we are is just, it's a tough thing. And all of you know that. You're judged every day, but you have to put in perspective, and it's right. Static, yeah. Or static. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to say static. Yeah,
static.
But we are
static.
That one girlfriend that we call, that we can unload on. And that's the girl that you call when you need to, like, unload. Incompetence. We got to trust her.
And it's really great that you brought up about girlfriends, right? And so I think, you know, obviously being women leaders, you have to have, I'm a girl's girl. Jen is a girl's girl. Like I'm in a sorority. I have really great, you know, girlfriends who are just phenomenal. And I ride with them, right?
Yep.
Even if it's like, oh, they were a little wrong on that. I'm not going to tell you that. That's my girl, right? And so I'm a girl's girl. And so for me and my leadership, right, I've always leaned on women, right? And whether it's women who have been in my role before, women who operate as mentors, right? But I also understand, although I'm a girl's girl, not everyone who is a woman is a girl's girl. And I think all of us in here have possibly faced, right, some opposition from other female leaders. And it kind of comes at a surprise, right? Oftentimes. And so, yes, right. And so obviously, let's talk about that, right? Because I think that's sometimes the elephant in the room. We do talk about obviously empowering one another. But the other part is what happens with the empowerment when it's someone who looks like you, who is just not, who's also against you. And so I hear some laughs here. So I think there's some amens, and I'm going to take a sip on that one. Okay.
Yeah. I think we need another show for this one. Hey, another show there. Sequel number 2.
So listen, I hear you, but
I just want to add to that because I think, and it kind of stems from what we were just talking about, is your support system. I have two amazing sisters that are actually here today. Shout out to my sisters over there, but they, having that support system to one, unload, but also when you face challenges of interacting with women that may not necessarily see eye to eye or agree with you, or maybe just a little something against you, having that where you can unload that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, hey, I think we all need it, right? We all need to share stories and really, be able to kind of, express your real feelings, because I think women sometimes we share too much sometimes, but in my opinion, I don't know if it's too much. I think if that's what you're feeling, that's what you're feeling.
Vulnerability. Yeah, vulnerability.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So my sisters have heard me, talk about that. So they, they don't need to tell the stories, but yeah, they.
Yeah. Sisters, I have two.
Yeah, you do. Who are they? Oh, whatever.
I mean, we are tight. Okay, so much so that I didn't pledge a sorority because I had sisters at home. Okay,
right.
But I think for me, when you said that, it made me think of something that State Senator Sarah McBride, who's running for U.S. Congress and hopefully will make history herself, she shared with me a quote. I was speaking of another individual that wasn't supportive of her at one point, but now is. And I said to her, how do you open up yourself to accept that? Like and she said, I will extend grace as long as they continue to demonstrate growth.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, I've thought about that in so many different scenarios with different people that I deal with. And so when I come into a relationship and then someone does not necessarily meet, the bar where I had placed it, maybe I placed it too high. Maybe my expectations were too great. Maybe they are living, a difficult time. And so, as I've gotten older, I've learned to extend grace and hope that the relationship will go somewhere else. If it doesn't, that's okay, because then they did not demonstrate growth, fine. But I think it's, once again, that's on them. That ain't on me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose a connection with a sister because I do value sisterhood.
Yeah.
So I will extend grace for a long time. There are a lot of people that shouldn't have gotten as much grace as they've gotten in my life. Come on now. But it's been worth it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because those relationships end up, feeding me.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And they wind up growing you, right? I mean, they wind up growing you. And I will say, in every experience that I've had with that, whether it was, a sense of betrayal or anything, it teaches you, one, about yourself, right? But then also it builds you up a little bit more. So certainly with that. And so I heard all of you talk about relationships, right? And so, being a woman that leads, transparency point, I am a single woman who is, hoping one day to have the husband and the children and, the family. And so hoping for that one day, but also understanding, when in my leadership and sometimes time isn't there, right? And so how do you, let's talk about it, right? How do we balance all of that? How do you balance being a superwoman, right? And then, okay, well, let's talk about it. You don't.
You gotta get rid of the superwoman.
Okay.
But I'm like, we talk about you have to be superwoman. No, you don't. You have to be who you are to your family. When I first got into this, I was married and I had two children. I had two young children, and I was balancing a lot, And it's like we use that word superwoman.
Yeah.
Not a man.
Yeah.
We use that superwoman that we're trying to do all this stuff, right? And we're trying to be perfect at everything. And you sometimes have to take a step back and just say, well, first of all, children are number one. My children come first. They just come first, right? And we always come second. But you got to find who you are, and you have to find balance in your life, and you have to be happy at what you do. If you are not happy in what you do, you're going to make everybody else around you not happy.
Well, for me, that right?
It is.
I like that's a happiness. Seriously, yeah.
So you got to figure out what makes you happy, to have that power and to be that superhero. And I went through a divorce, and that was challenging, and I had to figure out where I get my strength from, because you have to dig deep. And yes, you could be superwoman, and that was the word to say all this time. But you just have to figure out who you are, what direction you want to go, and be happy where you are. And to me, it falls into place after that. You just got to love what you do. If you love what you do, it makes it so much easier. If you're miserable, get out. Get out of it. Get out of it. And it's hard to do that, but that's what you need your girlfriend for, to tell you the truth, right? That's the goal. You go back to the girl side, and you're like, what am I doing wrong here? But, you know, I went through a divorce, and what I did learn is that I have to lean into my vulnerability. Sometimes we hide from that, and I think your superpower, I call it superpower instead of superwoman, is your vulnerability. And it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay. You know, when I did my first speech as Speaker of the House, and I read my speech, you know, I wrote my speech, you know, I did tear up because I grew up in a family with an alcoholic mom and an absent father. She attempted suicide twice. We moved from, you know, from place to place, but like, I leaned into that because that's who I am. And I'm okay with that because it made me who I am. But like, I'm happy where I am, but I'm also able to show my vulnerability and be okay with it. And sometimes we put that mask and we try to hide behind it. When you hide behind it, that's when you're going to get in trouble.
Like that, where does that come from now? Because we often do that, right? We often, the mask, where does it come from? Like, let's talk about it, right? I mean, I think that's the deeper thing. And we see a lot of women leaders who, you know, maybe even come into a new organization or start something and they have to, you know, feel like they have to be this tough, this, you know, very hard leader. But then they lose staff and, you know, all these other things are happening. And, you know, really a space of vulnerability would have gone a long way. But where does the mask come from? I mean, I've
thought about this so many years. I'm old. Is that
no, you're not. No, you're not a mask. No, you're not.
I turned 60 in December of last year. What I find is that throughout my career and always being in management and working in management is that we women were taught, because it was a man's world, to compete against one another. And when we compete against one another, we're climbing over each other to get to that next level, and we're not realizing that we're our power together instead of climbing up. I think we're shown that, like I think I was shown that through my business career, is that you had to step over people because you had to have that seat at the table over that man. Or, you know, and it's just like, so you did that, and we programmed ourselves to be that way instead of realizing that the more women you have around you, the more powerful you become, and you need to help everybody get to that table. I've learned that over the years, that you bring women along, you don't push women back.
Oh,
I'm just,
I don't know if anyone has anything else to add to that conversation, because I think, you know, that's huge, right? And I think particularly for younger women leaders, because oftentimes, you know, I think many of us who are probably sitting on this couch and even in the audience who are women leaders, right? You are exceptional at something, right? And so you spend your whole life being exceptional. And so sometimes being exceptional doesn't allow for that vulnerability, right? It even goes back to the way we have our grading system in school. Did you get an A? Did you get an A? Did you get an A, right? So what if the child got C, right? You know, so what? It doesn't really matter, right? But it literally starts from there, and then you continue to build that up. And so by the time you have a woman who's leading, right, you have all of that's on her shoulders, right? And especially, I will say, for women who are pioneers, it's really like, this is all on my shoulder, right? And so that vulnerability certainly is key, right, to continue moving on. But I don't know.
It's our country. It's not just the way that we are socialized. It's a meritocracy. Everything is about, you know, it's you being better than the next person. And even when we raise our children, you know, in the carpool lane, they're like, so where's your kid going to school? And such and such got a touchdown. And, you know, it's just this competitive nature that really is not, it's not healthy. Wow. And so, I mean, being conscious of that is what kind of safeguards you and then allows you to be vulnerable. You know, we're not conscious of it because everything in our society is telling you to compete against each other, survival of the fittest. You gotta beat down the rest of them. And then all of a sudden you realize you're the only one up there. You done beat down everybody. None of them are coming to help you because you done beat them down. Right? And you all alone by yourself in a room full of men. Oh, well, now, you know what I mean? No, you know, so it's like you have to realize I'm only competing with myself. I'm going to do my best. I cannot, once again, feed into that. You know what I mean? That to me is the real enemy, you know. But I'm all about breaking down systems, so that's just how I roll.
I hear you. You have anything to add?
I mean, I think a lot of it is just, in my opinion, too, is, I mean, having that opportunity of, embracing women of regardless of age, right? And giving them a platform. I believe in giving women that may not necessarily have the opportunity to have a platform. And how can we raise them up? You know, and that's the biggest thing that's my role. That's one of the things that I see how we can help in women in leadership is how can we embrace women where they are, give them the platform, and let people know who they are and what the impact that they're making in our community, in our business community, regardless of even if you have differences, but encourage each other, because if not, we're only going to continue to break each other down. And that's just, not healthy.
Yeah.
Not healthy.
Yeah. I'm making a point when I do something and I have women around me and I have the opportunity to speak in front of, you know, a group of people, is to make sure that I lift somebody else up next to me and make sure that I give women accolades that deserve it. And you can't be afraid to give somebody accolades because you feel like that they will be elevated over you. Yeah. And I've learned as the speaker is when we do bill signs and like that, recognizing people, Margaret Rose Henry, you know, and making sure that people know it wasn't just you. You can't sit up there and say, it's me, 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 me. You bring the people around you and you let them have a part of that victory and give them the credit that they deserve. It's not just about you. It's about the other people around the room. And what we have to do is lift other women up with us. And I try to do that when I'm in a room full of women. I always acknowledge the people that are around me. Margaret Rose, you know that. Yeah. I always point her out.
Well, just like your sister said, when Lisa goes to Washington,
we all go to
Washington, and I believe that. And I think that's an authentic.
And Lisa does it all the time when she's out. Whenever I'm out somewhere, she recognizes the people that are in the room. She's so good at that, lifting women up, especially her baby. Yes, I know that's right. You don't need lifting up. You're already lifted up. Well, I mean, but I do give a shout out. As you should.
And I think, you know, a large part of this is creating the space, right? I mean, and I think all of us have the opportunity to create space where women feel safe, right? Where there's an open space for women to feel empowered, right? And I think it's incumbent, particularly all of us women leaders, to do that, right? And just not for those who may be younger in age, but even for those, you know, who may be seasoned professionals as well, to have that safe space. And so, yeah, and so a lot of, you know, hearing a lot about healthy, I keep on hearing that buzzword, healthy, which I love to talk about as well. And so, you know, just not obviously physical health, but also mental health. And I never forget, I was driving home one day. I used to commute back from to Delaware to Philadelphia, and I was driving on 476, and I was tired. I was extremely tired. You know, it was a long day. I was tired, and I wound up talking to a sister cousin, in the car, and you know, and I was just expressing just, you know, how stressed I was, right? And so she said, let me tell you something, Jenna, until you really get some rest and take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to look at this different. And she was absolutely right. And so I started prioritizing rest, right? And so I'm just curious, what do you all do for, you know, for self-care? What do you do? What do you do? Okay. You don't know to eat. Listen. Right. No, what do you do for self-care? So, yes.
This is a day. Well, you know, I'll be out, right? Yes. Like, I
don't want to bring everybody down. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think for me, I do like to take care of my spiritual health, as well as my physical health. I think I'm like Val, like, let me just go for a run just to clear my head. But I do believe in making sure that even my team is healthy as well. So that's one thing that I've instilled is, hey, take a mental health day.
Yeah.
It's okay. And, you know, do it. If it's once a month that you have to do it, take that time. And they have been taking advantage of it, which is good. Right?
Yeah.
But, you know, I love it. And I embrace it because they'll say, I'm taking my mental health day today. I'm like, great. Good for you, because that's so important. It's important for me.
It's over your team.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
I cannot make them take mental health days. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So let me help you help them.
Please.
There you go.
I said this on that one too.
Well, I want to do well. 2 experiences in my life that will send a signal to you that it is important that you take care of yourself. In 2008,
I was running the Obama campaign here in Delaware. I was the state director for the Obama campaign. I was doing 17-hour days. Yeah. I mean, I was working 7 days a week to get that black man elected to the White House. Yeah. And I did, but at a cost. At a cost, yeah. Yeah. I had vitiligo at that time. I had a couple of spots on my body. At the end of that race, I had completely depigmented. The stress hormones in my body triggered that autoimmune disorder to the point where I was no longer brown. Yeah. Listen to your body. When it says stop, stop. Yeah. Last month, 5 years ago last month, I had a stroke. Now that was after helping state and local elected officials get elected, running, teaching 7 classes, raising 2 children. Yeah. I had a stroke. Yeah. But I felt it coming on. I listened to my body. I went to the mirror, said something is not right. And something said, Marla, lift up your arms. I lifted up my arms and my left arm started to just drop. I said, I think I'm having a stroke. Had I not gotten to the hospital, I'd still be paralyzed on my left side. My whole left side was paralyzed. I had to learn how to walk again, write again. 6 months after having the stroke, I was chosen to be an elector for the state of Delaware for Joe Biden. I signed my name 9 times to certify the election in Delaware for that man to be the president of the United States. But it was the stress that led to all of those health issues. So when we don't prioritize ourselves and our bodies and our health, it will stop. It will break down. Listen to your body. It'll tell you. Yeah. It will tell you. I'm speaking to them.
It is. Yeah. Well, that's low. That's 40 real. That's very real. It's just very real.
Did we talk about it? Did you want to add something to that conversation? No, but you're absolutely right. And it's, again, I made the move to even that small thing of cutting a 40-minute each way commute. My line sister, my sorority sister, is back there, and she even commented, Jim, your skin looks much better. And she would say, girl, you slimming down. So I said, yes, I am. But again, just taking out that kind of stress, right? And I think we need to really look at self-care. I think for so long, we have thought the harder we work, it's associated with our value.
That's right. Correct. And self-care is not going on a vacation. It is stopping and just relaxing for a day at home. It's like
every day you should do at least 1 hour of self-care and intentional, right? So whether it's reading a book, whether it's working out, right? Whether it is, doing whatever, right? That is true. Actually, I like Instagram a lot. So sometimes I'll scroll into reels and things like that. I think I'm like a Spike Lee with the reels. But you have to be very, very intentional about it, right? And I think also not only just for yourself, but one of the things that I recognize even with me and my transition, being able to make sure that I implement self-care, I was also a better leader because I was going into my office happy. I was stressed, right? I was angry. You're stressed. You're angry. I don't want to be here, right? And so I showed up better, right? It was made real, right? I showed up better for my team, right? I showed up better to the community. Right, I wasn't tired. So your self-care, there's other people, like other people are depending on you to do tasks. Other people are depending on you too to do some self-care. So you can do, whatever your job is, you can do it much better and be more impactful for those that are around you. There you go. So yeah. And so when we talk about creating those spaces for leaders, right? If you're working 17-hour days, there's a whole other group of leaders who are seeing that and thinking that they got to work 17-hour days, right? So you're absolutely right. So yeah. So I'm also curious, everyone up here, you're multifaceted, you're multi-talented. What's a passion project that you all have been working on lately? Some passion, I want to know what's going on, some passion project.
I am working on documenting Lisa's run for the U.S. Senate. And
I actually want to get 2 documentarian teams. We'll see who gets it done first. But yeah, I've said to her from the very beginning that the way that she runs, that story needs to be told.
Yeah.
And that there needs to be a blueprint.
Yes, sir.
We don't know how to get to that level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the way that they teach people how to run for office is patterned after a white man. And, you know, we don't have those resources or that Rolodex. We don't know the best practices.
Yeah.
And the best practices also don't take into account the intersectionality of a Black woman. So that's my passion project right now.
Nice. I can't wait. Okay. Love it. Love it.
Oh. I'll just go with policy, because I am in the General Assembly. Mental health has always been something that was big for me. We're considered part-time as legislators, which is actually a full-time job. But so I have another day job, which is I'm the executive director for the PAL of Delaware, which is an after-school program. Not the one here in Wilmington. It's chartered in Garfield and Delaware City and Hockessin and also in Colonial School District. And what I found is that I'm very passionate about children because of my children and the stuff that I went through. And I know the kids that come into my facility have a lot of trauma in their lives. And you can't teach a child to read and care about what the capital of Delaware is if they're going home at night and their lights aren't on. They're seeing their mom, on opioids and their alcoholic mom, or, they don't know what they're going to go home to. They don't know whether they're going to have food on the table. And, that child goes into the classroom and is expected to learn. And we can't change the education system unless we deal with 2 things: educating our students and their mental health. And what I learned with the children that I see every day is that trauma is there. And we've ignored it for so much in our state. So pre-COVID, I had put out a bill which has a heavy price tag to put more mental health social workers, school counselors, and psychologists into our schools. At that point, there was no ratio. It was like 1 to 1,000 per kid. And as I went up and down the state, I asked the counselor or the social worker, what do you do? And there may be one person for 1,000. They're like, what child do I pick? Who do I pick first, right? And knowing the trauma that these kids had, it had a big price tag to it. And at the time, we didn't have the money in the state. So I broke it up. Instead of having it in all schools, I did it in elementary because I believe you go upstream. Instead of starting with high school and getting into high schools, I'm like, let's start with the little kids, because they don't know, and they don't know how to deal with anxiety, depression, and what they're seeing. They think it's a normal part of life, just like I did. So I got it in the elementary schools. I got it in the middle schools last year. And then this year, I finally got the governor to sign it last week into all the high schools. So, and I still need to do more. I still need to do more about mental health. So when I get back, we've done a lot in that space, and Delaware has gone from the bottom to the top. I'm putting an MSW program at the University of Delaware and do a loan forgiveness program. And we also have a loan forgiveness program for Del State University for their social workers. We have to build that pipeline so we can get them in the school and we can fuel it. So I'm still working on getting more and more because it's important. It's important to all of us too. We all have our struggles in life, but I think if we start there, so my passion is to continue fighting for mental health in our schools and in the state of Delaware.
It's amazing. Yeah. And let me just say this. Del State was the only school that had an MSW program. Yep. MSW is the credential. Yep. That's what you need. A lot of people are running around here saying they're doing social work, but they are not trained in those theories and practices. They're not doing interventions that have been proven to be successful. They're not trauma-informed in their work. And to have an MSW program at University of Delaware to create that pipeline, that is huge.
But the loan forgiveness to get people.
That's the best part because
diversity in that field too.
And the reason why that's important is because they come into that field making very little money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Social workers do not get paid for the work that they do and for that loan forgiveness. So I'm sorry, we turned this into something totally different. But that's my passion. But the President's Safer Communities Act, did those dollars come to you because there's in that Safer Communities Act there were monies that were set aside for mental health services in schools, and so I'm curious if when they came to the state, if okay,
do you want me to be reality? Like, yes. Well, I feel that when that money came in, you know, I talked to a lot of people in the state because I think we need to build an infrastructure. It's one thing when we get money, we just start tossing it out here and there. That doesn't fix the problem. If we can build the infrastructure of mental health, and I had a plan, but like I wasn't listened to, so I'm chipping away at my infrastructure that I believe in my head needs to happen. I think it did go to some use, and I think it did small projects and things like that. But I think that we needed to have a bigger discussion around it to figure out how we fix it in the state of Delaware, because we do know mental health causes homelessness, opioids, incarceration, like domestic violence. We know that that's what it is. And until we get a hold of that and we get the mindset of that, I am so passionate about taking and like figuring out what that infrastructure is.
Yeah.
And I will do it.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Let me leave. I love it.
I know. You love it. I love it too. I'm serious. I'm going to get you an army. I'm like, here they are.
Well, that's the reason why we love the Share Passion projects, right? We never know the resources that could be in the room. So,
Well, you know, I'm excited because in November, we have our biggest conference that we have throughout the chamber. It's our Women's Leadership Conference. And it's huge. We get over 500 women. Yes. At the Chase Center, and my director of events is here. She's probably like, yes, say it. But it's in November. It's the Thursday right before Thanksgiving, and we've already just lined up our keynote panel. I'm so excited. So more to come on that, but we have our information ready. But that's a project that I'm really excited about because, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's giving women the platform that we normally don't hear from. Right. We hear from some of the same women, which is great. We need that, right? That's fuel for us. But we also need the women that are also doing the work, right, in the community. Yep. And so there's some powerful women out there that we don't know about. We don't. Right. And it's how do we give them that platform? So I am so excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have a DJ, hopefully. So we're really trying to make it a great event. And last year we had our biggest event to date for women's leadership. We had 550, I think, women that came and supported throughout the region. So this year we're hoping about the same. So I'm excited, and we have awards that we give out to leadership. And so it's a fun event. So that's a project that I'm very passionate about.
And I'll plug it because I go to it, and they have tables, and all the women's have tables, and you can go talk to them. And it's just a great social empowerment. And you do such a great job because it went from 0 to 500, and you did an amazing job. So seriously, yeah, you did. Like, it's a great
pet project, Jen.
You know, listen, I have several. And so just because I'm always, but from the league, Urban League side, we have our Empowerment Breakfast, which is in November as well. And so really looking forward. This is our second annual Empowerment Breakfast. We do give out community awards. Last year, we sold the place out. And so that was great. And also raised an unprecedented amount of funding for the event as well. So I'm really excited about that. And so more to come. Please follow us at mwl.org and on Instagram and Facebook. But aside from the league, which again, very, passionate about the work that we do at the Urban League, I'm also working, and this has been years in the making, of an actual full-length biography on Coretta King.
Oh.
And so that has been since I've started in graduate school. And so now I've picked it back up again. And so I continue picking it back up. And so Bernice King, if you hear this, please let me have those letters that you have that, because I need that as a primary source document. But it's a great project. And when you talked about the documentary that you were doing, a lot of times we do this great work, but we, maybe we're not the best at writing it down and preserving it, right, for the future generation. And so I'm really excited about this passion project that I have. And then maybe one day somebody will be writing a book about Jen Thompson. That's the part. That's the part right there. So I think we are rounding up our time. I'm kind of getting the usher kind of one, like, you better wrap this up. But it has been certainly an amazing evening with all of you. And you all, the information that you shared is just extremely invaluable. And so just really quickly, I don't know if anyone has social media, anything along those lines that you can let folks know where to follow you, websites, any of that, just because this is, again, this is about empowerment. And so anything that you would like to share as far as getting in touch with you or websites, anything like that you can share?
I mean, the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce, I just highly recommend you get involved. Follow us I think we're on every platform for the most part. Again, you can always reach out to me. My team knows that I'm available, so you can always reach out to me through LinkedIn or email or however you want to look up. I'm on the website, so I'm always available.
Yeah, so I would love for every woman out there to get on a campaign. Whether it is Kamala's campaign, my sister's campaign,
mine.
We have
I was going to get to you.
We have races that are happening now. We have a primary coming up, and I want people to not only vote, but I want you to support the candidates as right and these strong women that are running. I want you to, if you can't support them financially, knock on doors for them, make phone calls for them, and turn out your friends and family to vote for strong women that can lead. That, my handle is at MarlaBC11 on Instagram, and you can always find me at Rutgers. That's where I am. So if you want to get an MSW and join this army that I'm sending Val's way, it's like, come on.
I'll take them. I guess you can get a hold of me, Valerie.Longhurst@delaware.gov. Or if you want my cell phone, it's 302-562-6640. I give it to everybody. Everybody has my phone number. I don't like care. Text me, whatever. Text me and then call me. But, my staff is here. If you, after this, you want to talk to me. Love to have you on my campaign. Would love Lisa to get in. She and I are going to be coordinating her campaign because she is going to be the first female senator in the state of Delaware. And it's
yeah. Well, thank you so much. And for me, it's MWL_Prez on Instagram and Jennifer Tompkins on LinkedIn. And so I also would love if we can just give an amazing round of applause to our studio audience that is out there this evening, but hanging with us, participating with us. This has, again, been an invaluable conversation. Shout out to DETV and all the great work Ivan and your team are doing for this amazing platform. And so I am Jen Tompkins, and I believe that is a little bit of a wrap. So thank you all so much for joining us for Every Woman, Her Perspective. And we're out. Talk to you later. Bye.
Yes, lady. Hey.